This episode of Padres Hot Tub is proudly brought to you by our man Walter from Estate Leak Detection and Plumbing. Local, dependable plumbing service, leak detection, and an expert in estate law as well, Chris Lee.
He is not. That was a lie, Craig. That's not accurate. Wally cannot help you avoid the government's long arm of tax enforcement.
Has he tried?
He would because he is a hardworking, earnest, helpful guy, but I do not think he would succeed, and he might face some sort of legal action at the end of it, as would you. So I find that if you are in the position where Walter can help you, like I was a few months back with a burst pipe in my shower with nobody I knew to call, you can call Wally.
You can call him at 619-300-7203. 619-300-7203. When you are in San Diego and you have something go wrong with your plumbing, you want somebody that you know you can count on. You want somebody who's independent. You don't want to be going to one of these kind of more random, bigger companies where you're going to get the kid who just got trained on the bullet points of the upsell, and is answering back on a ratio and a quota. You want somebody who's going to come in, look at it, give you an honest evaluation, and give you an honest job. So whether it's your house, your residence, or maybe your probate court, go ahead and give Walter a call. Estate Leak Detection and Plumbing, 619-300-7203. Padres Hot Tub, everybody. Memorial Day edition. Hope you had a great day off. We're working the night, getting things right, hopefully, for the San Diego Padres. Craig Elsten, Chris Reed, Raphie Cantor, we are all here with you and thrilled to have you supporting us. If you haven't checked out our YouTube videos yet, yes, we're a video show now, just as well as the audio podcast that we've been for 7 years. So check us out on YouTube. Please head on over. Just type in Padres Hot Tub. We've got our own page. You can click subscribe. We're approaching 1,000 subscribers in just a few weeks. And you can see all our ugly mugs as we talk, and just keep that on your phone as you walk. Gentlemen.
YouTube is the only way to know which hat I am wearing. Big mystery for all you audio only folks.
True. Hat? No hat? 2 of the 3 of us are wearing a hat, but who's not? Can you tell by our voices? You can only know for sure if you go to YouTube. Well, guys, it's the Memorial Day podcast. And here's the thing. Last week, we did the Memorial Day a week early podcast. So if you missed the broad strokes of this, and Raphie, I invite you to reintroduce a little bit of it. Basically, 57% of the variance of the Padres season is now already baked into the cake. A lot of the tumblers that could fall one way or another for this team, over half of them have already fallen. And it's the moment where you'll hear everybody say, the standings now matter. So I'm going to start right there with the Memorial Day standings. And the San Diego Padres are the 4th place club in the NL West. They're 24-29. They are 3.5 games out of 3rd. They are 6.5 games out of 2nd place. And they are 7.5 games behind the Dodgers. They are a game ahead of the Colorado Rockies for last place in the NL West. And when you look at 5 games under, St. Louis is 8 games under. Chicago's 7 games under. Colorado's 7 games under. Washington's 7 games under. And then there's San Diego and Will Myers' Cincinnati Reds sitting at an identical 24-29. Nobody in baseball thinks the Cincinnati Reds are going to compete for anything this year. The numbers and the fan graphs, Magic Needle, still believe the Padres can contend and should contend for a playoff series this year, a playoff berth. And guys, we've got a lot to talk about on this show because May is pretty much in the books. It's going to be a losing month for this club, whether it's a complete disaster or not. I guess there's 2 games left to add to that ledger, but it's a 9-15 month so far. And it's a club that by every measure is not contending for anything right now.
It's funny you bring up the Reds, Craig, because if I'm not mistaken, that's the last series the Padres won way back in the beginning of the month, right?
Well, they beat Washington 2 out of 3.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I imagine I forgot that they managed to eke out a series win at Washington.
And then took one from the Yankees, and then we'll talk about the road trip very shortly.
Yeah, I was mistaken, but it's not good company to be mentioned in. It's not good to be looking 3.5 games behind the Giants. Not good to be picking up catchers that the Giants released.
Yes. And for those who called this afternoon for a Padres Hot Tub Emergency podcast, here it's not. Gary Sanchez has been claimed off waivers from the New York Mets. We will talk about Gary Sanchez later in the show in the spot on the menu that we had to discuss catcher and not earlier because Gary Sanchez does not warrant even moving up in the menu. Never mind moving up the recording time of this week's Padres Hot Tub. We said last week on our Memorial Day a week early podcast that the Padres put themselves in a hole from which a 9-game, 3-series road trip to the East Coast became a defining trip. This was going to be a trip that really matters one way or another. And when you put yourself in a hole, you have to have a hot streak at some point to dig you out of that hole to allow you to be then that winning team that can still drop a game here or there. The Padres aren't that team right now. Every game they drop leaves them in this rut. 5 games under 500, drifting further and further along the schedule. So being 3-3 so far on this road trip, the one thing I will say is it's not a complete disaster, right? It's not like the trip of doom where they go 1-8 and everything falls apart. They're 3-3. The worst they could do is 3-6. That would be really, really bad, but it's not 1-8, right? It's not complete doom. So they're 3-3, but it really hurt, I think, guys, this weekend to see this club play in some ways right there toe-to-toe with the New York Yankees, and in other ways just fall so short when it mattered on both Saturday and Sunday to turn what could have even been a series sweep into a series loss.
Yeah, I wanted to point out this is a kind of a magical moment that we're at from a standings perspective, not only because it's Memorial Day and that's a traditional, signpost for baseball in terms of when we start to evaluate the standings, but also specifically for the NL West right now. According to Fangraphs, the San Diego Padres, the San Francisco Giants, and the Arizona Diamondbacks all have just about the same chance of making the playoffs this year. So, we're basically in coin flip territory. We have a 53.8% chance of making the playoffs, according to Fangraphs. Going to this weekend, I think it was there wasn't a bigger microcosm of this season, I think, than the series in which, Friday night began with a lot of hope. We had Soto and Tatis hit massive bombs on national television, announcing their presence to the country and making it feel like, especially coming off the back of that, last gasp Rougned Odor home run in Thursday's game in Washington to save that series. Okay, maybe we're going to build a little bit of momentum. For what it's worth, performance with runners in scoring position did not improve that game.
No.
Nope. It was still just, runners on first, hit the home run. Great. Okay, we got 2 runs. That's fantastic. But the risk problem continues. Saturday, we lose an extra inning game. We are now 0-5 in extra innings this year. I do not attribute that to anything more than bad luck, especially with the Manfred man in baseball nowadays. Extra innings is just about coin flip every time. So if you lose 5 coin flips in a row, I don't think anyone would take it personally. But
lately, it's been more like a ball flick, Raphie.
Yes.
I mean, it's a weighted coin when you're the worst team by 30 points in runners in scoring position, having a historic low. And the whole point of the Manfred man is one little hit with runners in scoring position.
Precisely.
And you score a run. You're pretty much set up to be 0-5 in extra innings.
Yeah. And I'm going to save the Austin Nola content for when we talk about Gary Sanchez coming in. But notable that he was pinch hit. He came into pinch hit in extra innings for Brett Sullivan. Brett Sullivan, by the way, not a paragon of offensive performance by any stretch of imagination. I think he's actually worse at the plate than Austin Nola this year, which seems impossible. And Sunday, I think we really saw what was the first of what I think might be to come, which is some regression from the pitching staff. We had a historic, I don't want to say historic, but we had the best pitching month in baseball in May so far, the San Diego Padres. It doesn't feel like it because our offense is so terrible, but we had a 2.94 team ERA, going into Saturday's game. And then obviously Yankee Stadium happened. But one of the things of note on that was that our expected FIP was a little high compared to the rest of our numbers. Expected FIP is based largely around our fly ball rate. And it doesn't surprise me that the Padres had a lower expected FIP because they play in Petco Park in April and May when the marine layer is knocking everything down. You go to Yankee Stadium where you got the porch and you got the short fences. And all of a sudden, those fly balls, a few of which, I mean, Trent Grisham pulled one back, for God's sake. Those just creep over the fence. Yeah. And I mean, we get what we got, which was a 10-run performance from the Yankees. So,
is that not ballpark adjusted?
Expected FIP?
Yeah.
It is. But basically what it uses is it uses the league fly ball rate as a proxy,
a normalized rate.
As a normalized rate instead of the total amount of home runs you've given up. Basically because there's a natural amount of variance in like the wind's blowing one day, one direction one day versus another, a fly ball that would be a home run one day is a warning track pop out. And so to normalize for that over, a full season sample, they basically take the league home run to fly ball rate and then compare your fly ball rate and basically try and guesstimate, if we were to play this out, in a neutral environment, so to speak, a league environment, how, what would your FIP be? So, I haven't done the historical analysis of like if the Padres historically have an XFIP, but I'm rambling at this point. Just go. You can listen to me on the other show talk about this stuff. But
no, it's good to know, man. That's stuff I people like me don't necessarily have in the memory bank.
Well, our guys, John Picotta and yourself on Padres Above Replacement, Pods Above Replacement, did a good May review. We'll even touch on some of the stuff that you guys brought up a little bit later, but we do invite that both as a video right there next to us here on YouTube or as the podcast right next to us on the feed as well to check that out. To the Yankee series and the trip so far specifically, the Washington series could have been a loss, and you mentioned that. The Padres blew a 5-1 lead in the Thursday morning game at Nationals Park. Served up a 5 spot in the 7th inning. Nick Martinez came in and was not good. The Nationals hit every first pitch for a hit. And it was actually a Brett Sullivan leaping, diving play, incredibly athletic play behind the plate that kept Alex Cole from scoring a 6th run in that inning. And then the Padres took their 1-run deficit all the way to 2 outs in the 9th, 2 on, 2 out, and Rougned Odor hit a 3-run homer, which is At this point, the kind of thing that Padres fans who are so desperate to find anything to cling on to are like, oh, well,
change the
we just expect this. Rougned Odor hits 3-run homers with 2 outs in the ninth to rescue games and rescue series. But that's the last time that's going to happen this year. Like, that's it. The Rougned Odor magic 3-run homer out of nowhere, 2 outs in the ninth. Bookmark it to make me look like an asshole a month from now, and I'll be psyched, because that means Rougned Odor hit another 2-out game-winning home run in the 9th inning. I'm telling you right now, that's the last time that's happening this year. This is a guy who started 3 for 31 and then caught a hot pocket, which culminated with a Thursday morning home run and Friday getting a big hit in the Yankees series, where the Padres, at his last hit, made it 5-1, right? And was a runner in scoring position hit. Because the thing about Rougned Odor, and he did it last year too,
his whole career,
he's killing it in clutch situations. Like, he's really been nails in the big spots for the Padres so far this year. So that's why it made me so angry and frustrated. And yet semi-understanding and throwing up my hands at the nature of the Padres roster and the difficulty presented to Bob Melvin when on Saturday morning we woke up to Rougned Odor leading off for the San Diego Padres, something that put me in an absolute freak out the last week of March when they were doing it in spring training and when Kevin Acee one time wrote that he could be the leadoff hitter and right fielder. And I was like, are you kidding me? Because Rougned Odor in the world should never lead off. There's not a universe. Like, Doctor Strange has not conjured a scenario by which Rougned Odor leads off and someone wins. Can I be straightforward to the Rougned Odor lovers in the listening audience in the crowd? He's great with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. Okay? He's got a specific thing. He's got a specific thing that he seems to have a knack to at least have the, Dennis Schroeder ice water in the veins with LeBron meme type thing. So what's the one position in the lineup that is 100% guaranteed not to bat with a runner in scoring position at least the first time up? There's only one.
And also, with the Padres 8-9, you might as well just apply it throughout the rest of the game.
Which literally happened the game that he was in the leadoff spot. He didn't hit with runners in scoring position because he kept seeing the 8 and 9 spots make the second and third out of the previous inning, and then he'd lead off the next inning. And he led off that game with a 1-pitch out. An Al Martin special. Okay? The old Al Martin special. First pitch of the game, ground out. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows what the pitcher has or what's happening. And you're set up for an easy first inning and for a bad game. And Luis Severino, who's a great pitcher who had great stuff and throws high 90s, sits 97 to 99 with his four-seam. Like, it was a bad matchup for the Padres to begin with. And as such, I was going through who could possibly have led off? Azócar? No. Kim struggles badly. He's probably the literal best choice, but the way he struggles with high velo, you wouldn't think Severino would be a good matchup. Odor, well, he can kind of handle a fastball. Maybe he'll turn on one. You almost get it, but it was just a terrible decision, and it helped set up the Padres to have a game where they barely hit at all, and Severino was good, but he had a very easy first inning, and he was set up for success. And that game still, they led 2-1. LeMahieu hit a, pop fly Yankee Stadium homer that would have been a routine out at Petco Park, or at least a nice running catch by Tatis up by the beach, and instead they go to extra innings. They can't move the Manfred man. They lose. That really felt like an important game, and never more so than when the very next day, Azócar's racing around the bases on a Little League homer, and you're beating Garrett Cole 3-1 with Yu Darvish on the mound. And what do you get? An inning where Darvish can't get anybody out, and you wind up losing a game where you score 7 runs, 6 off Garrett Cole, and you lose 10-7, and you lose the series. It was a really dispiriting series for people who are rooting for the Padres comeback and rooting for something that you're building upon, where you're building momentum. Momentum was lost in 2 kind of heartbreaking ways.
I do want to point out that in the Yankees series, the Padres average 5 runs a game. That's like a run more than the season so far. And so I don't necessarily think the team itself lost a lot of momentum. I know the fan base did. I know how we were feeling, winning a series and winning that first game against the Yankees. So I know us fans did, hugs, guys. But I don't think the team did. I think the team felt like they had exactly what happened. A couple of bad breaks come their way. Yu Darvish turns in. He does this 2 or 3 times a season, just where his stuff isn't there. The balls aren't moving like he wants them to, and he throws strikes, so he just gets crushed. And that third inning saw a couple of kind of close plays that I think the Padres A-team defensive unit makes. Ha-Sung had a chance at the double. That one isn't necessarily it. There are a couple of hits up the middle that were so close. Volpe's RBI, Rizzo's RBI, and then that fielder choice. I think at least those 3 plays, one of those turns into an out, which keeps a run or 2 off the board, which means the Padres are in it later. I don't think the team lost a ton of momentum. I see some positive things out of the offensive performance this weekend. Tatis Jr. coming alive, putting balls in the stands, maybe being a bit sloppy on the bases like he always has. But bringing it at least.
I'm looking for any signs of life. And, Raphie, there's time to slowly build, but there's not a lot of time to slowly build. The type of team that goes 5-4 over and over again, like, kind of barely has enough time right now to make it to the playoffs at the end of this. You need to put a 6-3 in there. You need to put a 7-2 in there to help move the needle when you're 5 games under 500, a game out of last place in the National League, a game out of the worst record in the senior circuit. It's not like you're sitting there with a lot to play with. You've got 3 teams with winning records above you right now in the division, and you have fewer games within the division to chase them down yourself and catch them with 2-game swings than you've ever had before. So do you agree with Chris? Are the offensive games at a place like Yankee Stadium enough to get you excited? I still see a lot of systemic issues with this offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, if we don't pick up the wins now, we're kicking the can down the road into later. And so, yeah, we could, go 2-1 in Miami, or 1-2 in Miami, and come back a game down 500 than from before we left. And I don't think it necessarily ends the season. It just puts the pressure on you to have one of those quote unquote magical runs at some point where you go 12 for, win 12 out of 14 games, for instance. And then it's like, okay, we're cooking and stuff. I mean, I think getting to 500 before the All-Star break is something that, needs to be necessary for the team, I think, from a strategic standpoint, because I think you need to start thinking about what additions you're going to make in the following, in the ensuing weeks. And if the team is still below 500 at the All-Star break, I think it creates some serious questions that I didn't think we were going to be asking at this point, of like, what is actually the best strategy for the team long-term going forward? For instance, I wouldn't want them burning a Jackson Merrill in a trade if the team is below 500 at the All-Star break. You know what I mean? So and so to do that, I mean, it's 6 weeks to the All-Star game. So, put some rest days in there. That's probably 35, 36 games off the top of my head. Like, So, they need to go 21-14, 20, that feels Herculean right now, the way this team is playing. And, so are there things to be happy about, like from the offensive performance? Like, sure, I'm happy that they put up the runs when we're needed. We talked about this in positive replacement, but the runners in scoring position situation is like a borderline defying logic.
Yeah, it's anomalous almost, right?
It's super anomalous.
We'll get into it for sure.
We'll get it in there, but I guess that can transition us to talking about the series in Miami, as I see that's next on our menu.
Well, yeah, is 2 out of 3 enough? I mean, a 5-4. The point being, a 5-4 road trip feels okay, right? Like I'm going to say yes to the question I'm posing. I think 5-4 is enough at the point where you're 3-3, but you need to start putting some 6-3s up, 7-2s up. When we get to the second half of the show, let's go through the schedule up to the All-Star break, and see where the opportunities are for this team, along with where the issues are and whether we can fix them or not. But we're getting into this zone. It's not early at all. They're 24-29. When you've played this number of games, when you played 53 games, and you kind of know what it's like for Padres baseball when you show up. Like, the problems that are going to be there every game when you show up. We're watching this show every day. We've watched 53 episodes. We kind of, we kind of know where the stars are. We kind of know where the problems are and where the plot falters most nights. So that's the issue. And as we kind of transition to the month as a whole, Raphie, you talked about it earlier, but this team's pitched really, really well. Bullpen near lights out, almost set a club record for consecutive innings scoreless. Michael Wacha might be NL Pitcher of the Month. And in that, the club is 9-15 right now with 2 games left in the month of May. So they'll either be 11-15 to 9-17. That's the range for where the record will land for the not so merry month of May. It's tough to project this team with this personnel on this staff and the guys who are out right now to continue to be like the best ERA team in the National League going forward in the month of June and the month of July.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Yankee Stadium, we've been playing in marine layer covered Petco Park. We got another month of that, and then by 4th of July, marine layer is going to start to burn off. The ball is going to be heating up, and fly balls are going to start flying out of Petco Park. So, I think that just in the way that I think our offensive performance has been anomalous to a much greater degree than our pitching performance has also been anomalous. They had a really good month. They not only had the lowest ERA, but they had, I think, either the lowest or the second lowest expected WOBA. So the quality of contact that hitters were producing against us was really poor. So it was just like a straight up good month from the pitching staff. But it's not sustainable. So if that basically we have like the entire pitching staff pitched like a number 2 starter for the entire month. You know what I mean? And that's just not, you can't do that for a whole month, the entire year. You know what I mean? So the offense is going to have to fill in the gaps. I have been I pointed out already the 0-5 in extra innings. We're also 3-9 in 1-run games this year. That's another instance where I think, some of that is just really bad luck. Looking at the expanded stats or expanded statistics standings this year, our Pythagorean win-loss percentage or win-loss record is 26-27. So we're technically like 2 games unlucky. I think if we're 26-27 right now, we're probably still freaking out a little bit. I think we're
rightly so.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that we're when people keep referencing like the Nationals or the Braves from the last few years, like this is the point in the year when things started to turn around for those teams. So if we don't start to see that turnaround from the Padres, like if they don't win the next few series, like the clock is ticking, you know?
This was tweeted today, and I don't really go on Twitter anymore, but I've still got the desktop account.
The mandatory disclaimer.
I do.
We do not endorse Twitter in any way, shape,
I'm on
or
Twitter
form.
at 619 Sports. It's a garbage platform. I don't use it. Follow me on Instagram at 619 Sports and Life. You can like me on Facebook. I might respond or whatever, however it works. I don't care. But I do check, for a couple of the accounts and whatever. These are the Padres records on Memorial Day in the A.J. Preller era.
Oh.
Ooh, interesting. It's not going to be good, is it? It's going to be bad.
2015, 21 and 25.
Oh, wow. That's better than we're now.
Boy, doesn't that feel familiar?
No.
21 and 25. I mean, 24 and 29, 21 and 25.
Do you guys
hear that? 4 or 5 games under?
That's Pat Murphy's music.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Dude, no, I almost said that last week. Like, Bud Black got fired at this point of the year, pretty much. Jock Peterson made a great running catch. You remember that? Jock Peterson made a great catch in center field for the Dodgers and robbed them of a series and a win. And he got fired for Pat Murphy. And Bob Melvin ain't getting fired, but okay, if it makes your stomach knot up, mine too. Okay, 2015, 21 and 25, 2016, 20 and 32, 2017, 20 and 33, 2018, 22 and 33, 2019, 28 and 26.
I remember that.
Yeah, Tatis was new. We were all so young.
2020, no record.
Did something happen?
Yeah, what was going on Memorial Day?
Something happened. There was no baseball games. I was
jet skiing.
Yeah. 2021, 34 and 21.
Yeah.
How'd that end?
Don't talk about that year. Let's talk about 2015 some more.
2022, 30 and 18. The Padres team that struggled their way to 89 wins last year was 12 games over 500 on Memorial Day. 12 over, not 500. 12 over. Oh, we struggled and then we got hot. We were 12 over. We had a bank of 12 over to draw against for 3 months, which the Padres did. They drew against that for 3 months, and then they started depositing in the bank again with a hot run in the final 5 weeks of the season. The Padres aren't set up anymore to have a hot 5 weeks and make it to the playoffs. They need to build a bank. They need a 2-month bank of wins that they can work off of in order to be able to get to where they need to get. And it really is an indictment, obviously, the Preller regime, when you break it down, right? You've got 5 losing records at Memorial Day. You've got 3 teams with winning records, all of whom got worse from that record to where their overall record wound up by the end of the year. Right? Well, let's see, 89 and 75. So +2 from that point forward for the Padres in 2022, right? So it's hey, or +4. It's not good. It's not good, and it's pretty consistent. And the shape that we have formed so far, the shape in our pottery class looks like that 2015 jar that we pretend that we like, but we put in the back of the cupboard and never look at.
The difference is there weren't 10-year contracts involved in 2015. No, there were
No,
big
there were like
contracts.
4-year contracts that felt scary. Matt
were
Kemp's
big.
4-year contract felt terrifying.
Rightfully so. Look at the records the years after they had to dismantle that team. The teams are different, but they need to start winning series. Like this road trip, if they can win 2 out of 3 series and then do that for the next 6 weeks leading to the All-Star game, that record's going to look a lot different. You know, a key date that I look at for that, guys, I told you about this earlier, Craig, is the June 18th, last game of the Tampa Bay Rays series at home. They have a homestand. I think it's the Guardians and the Rays. And the Guardians and the Rays will be the best teams they play up till that point, you know, by a pretty good margin, especially the Rays. I'll be very curious. You know, I know that's kind of in between now and the All-Star game, but if they're 6 games down going into that series with the Rays, they're not, it's going to be worse coming out of it.
Yeah. And again, I invite people to check out Pods Above Replacement, which is right there on our YouTube feed. It's right here in our podcast feed. If you have not sampled it, Raphie and John Percoda doing a great job going very stats heavy in their analysis. I enjoyed and was listening to yesterday on YouTube, Raphie, to, you know, do the right thing.
Team player.
The listening to the show and taking in the graphics when needed. And what I thought was not stunning at all, what was disgustingly predictable, is what's bedeviled this team. But you guys broke it down, which is the players who are hitting the most often with runners in scoring position in the month of May for the Padres. And it's, for example, Matt Carpenter hitting a third of the time with runners in scoring position in a month where he's 4 for 47.
Yeah.
And he's doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah, just to kind of to break that down, and we go more in depth in that episode, so recommend after you watch this episode to check that out. The players who have hit the most with runners in scoring position are Matt Carpenter, 33.2% of the time, Austin Nola, 32.7% of the time, Nelson Cruz, 32% of the time, and I mean that's basically your top ones right there. And what you need to know is that Matt Carpenter, with runners in scoring position this year, is hitting 150, 217, 325 with a weighted on-base average of 233. Oof. Austin Nola, with runners in scoring position this year, this is on 31 at-bats, 39 plate appearances, is hitting 0.67 with an on-base percentage of 222 and a slug of 0.67. So that is a 281 OPS. It is WOBA is 167 on that. And yeah, if you want to look at why the Padres are struggling so much with runners in scoring position, it's that to be fair to Austin Nola, his expected WOBA is 266 and his WOBA is 167. So he's getting incredibly unlucky, if you want to say that. He's like, his WOBA is shitty, and his expected WOBA is only stinky, farty, smelly. You know what I mean?
The acronym of that is WOEBA.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, when you guys did your catcher episode too, you know, it's crystal clear once you know that it's true. Austin Nola hits hard ground balls to the infielders, and he hits soft fly balls and pop-ups. And there's no in between. There's no hard line drives into the gap. That's what made Austin Nola a player that AJ Preller traded for. No, if it's hard, it's on the ground. If it's in the air, it's soft. And so that's why he's got this confusing mix of like a launch angle that seems right and an exit velocity that seems okay and absolutely no results at all. And you go, well, he must be unlucky. No, he's got the perfect wrong mix of ground balls to the infielders, the thing that you're going to get robbed on the most, and pop-ups and soft fly balls that are the easiest thing for major league defenses to convert into outs. So he's truly the worst. Like, combined with, by the way, can't throw anybody out. So
yeah. So this is why, and like I appreciate the tempered nature with which we are receiving the Gary Sanchez news, like in which like the expectations are low. I get that, but I don't think we're talking about how terrible Austin Nola is especially with runners in scoring position, in contrast to what just like a normal catcher would be in those positions. And Gary Sanchez, by the way, with runners in scoring position, not a normal catcher. And I'm not going to take into account like all his time with the Yankees when he was good and blah, blah, blah. This is just since 2022, just in the last year. And he had 7 plate appearances this year with the Mets. So basically just last year. And he was awful for those. With runners in scoring position, last year in this, Gary Sanchez has hit 231, 323, 538. That's an 861 OPS. A 359
that's a real
WOBA.
thing that exists.
That's a real thing that exists from the catching position. His expected WOBA is 387 this year. Another person who has an expected WOBA of 387 is Vlad Guerrero Jr. Okay. And I did the math. If Gary had hit like this instead of Austin Nola in the same amount of opportunities that Austin Nola had, we would have 5 more hits with runners in scoring position this year than we do, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you're 3-9,
that could be 4 more wins.
When you're
how many do we have now?
When you're 3-9 in 1-run games and 0-5 in extra inning games, and Austin Nola's getting at bats in those games, it's a big deal. And just to put the cherry on this, I talked about run value in the Pods Above Replacement episode, but basically, StatCast assigns you a run value above or below average in given situations. Austin Nola with runners in scoring position has a run value of negative 8.6 this year. So just on its own, that's an eighth of a win. Just Austin Nola with runners in scoring position in 31 at bats has cost us an eighth of a win. So this is what I'm talking about, where I'm like, I don't think we're talking about how terrible this is. And the fact that this continues to happen means that it's an unserious baseball team. If they have World Series aspirations and they're rolling this out 60 to 70% of the time, it is an unserious baseball team.
Yeah, and by the way, if Gary Sanchez is your fix, that's like bringing in cousin Greg as your fix. All right, it's
pretty unserious.
It's pretty unserious. It's pretty unserious. All right, let's take a mid break. For everybody who's not a patron, patrons are going to roll right through as we talk about what's to come and what can we fix. What parts of this team? There's 57% statistically baked in to what the Padres are right now. What of the 43% can we fix? What can we make better going forward? That's what we're going to focus on right after this. Hey, quick reminder for y'all that Padres Hot Tub, Chris, Raphie, myself, we work on this show. We do it for you. It's a free show. And if you listen for free, we love you. No problem. We're not going to indict you. HJ can make fun of us. It's fine. It's cool. Corey, love you guys. Shout out Gwintelligence. But we do have a Patreon community as well. We have a community of people who not only support the show and enjoy the product and want to support the people who create the product for you and who post up, twice a week, and for patrons 4 times a week and beyond, every day on our Discord and so on and so forth. But also, people who enjoy coming together as that community on our Discord and having a place other than the darker corners of social media to enjoy Padres baseball. And Chris, for as low as $5 a month with higher tiers above that, everyone can take part.
And each one of those tiers, you get added cool perks like shirts and blankets to keep you cold during the cold winters wherever you are. And to get us through the cold winters of the Padres season, it takes a little bit, guys,
Yeah.
to watch every single game kind of when they're playing like this hurts a little bit. And what makes it better is knowing that we got this massive community kind of relying on us to help get through it. So I just want to, like I do every week, thank you guys. It really means a lot. It helps keep it going. And I got involved here because I love the show and was a part of that same community, and so I know exactly where you're coming from. And thank you for being here.
And that's, in fact, the entire nature of everyone here, right? I helped create this show with John Gennaro. Chris and Raphie, you were both parts of our community that now are part of this show. And it is organic. We're as grassroots as it gets. We're completely independent, beholden to absolutely nobody, and allowed, thanks to you and thanks to your support, to give our unvarnished and 100% honest opinions about the Padres and about baseball. So if you'd like to support us, please do. Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub, Patreon.com/Padres Hot Tub. The link is right there if you are watching on YouTube. So thank you for everybody who helps us out. In the future, I'm thanking you. Okay, guys, we've it's shitty. 24-29. It's gloomy. Fourth place, a game out of last. The Rockies nipping at our heels. This is nowhere near anybody's worst case scenario. I want to remind everybody we did worst case, best case, and in between scenarios, and nobody picked a losing record for a worst case scenario. The Padres right now, to me, look like the 2015 Padres, a team that came off the heels of a 76-86 team in 2014 that was a string of 70-win teams, and they said, we're going to change it all, and they won 74 games. And for this team to just disappoint by 2 games from last year's record would be 87 wins. That's going to take a little doing right now from 24-29. So the questions I'd like to explore for the remainder of this podcast are discussing that statistical lock-in. Over half of our tumblers are locked in. A lot of what is to be is what's going to be. But what can we fix? What could change? What could make this Padres team closer to the vision of what we thought could be in 2023 as opposed to what has been through Memorial Day? And we've got to start with the best news possible. The Padres have been not just the worst team with runners in scoring position hitting for average, they've been the worst team for on base. They've been the worst team for slugging. They are below the worst performance in the history of recording this stat. That can't possibly continue. Even a dead cat bounce would put the Padres into a position where they'd win more games with a few more hits that dropped in, right? Right? Please.
Yeah, man. I think the ways, the mysterious ways of baseball, the baseball gods have been tipping the sails here. The Padres aren't the worst in these things. They're towards the bottom, but they're not the worst. They are absolutely the worst in history with runners in scoring position. And I mean that in history, baseball history, back to recorded time when caveman hit rocks with their clubs. The Padres are playing worse than all of those guys. That's going to change. That can't possibly continue. It makes no sense. They need their top 4 to get going. And as soon as that happens, as soon as the big 4 are healthy and playing like they should, all that stuff's going to go away. Like, I truly believe that. I don't think the 8-9 spots can hit 100 for an entire Major League Baseball season. And I think all 4 of those guys will be on the field at the same time playing 100% at one point, and it's going to change. Now, DH, I said a few weeks ago we said the Padres had their best DHs in history.
How'd that work out?
We might have put the mission accomplished banner on the deck of the aircraft
That's
carrier.
exactly right. Take all these down. Take all these down. Throw mission accomplished down.
Ladies and
Matt
gentlemen,
Carpenter, you did it.
we got him.
We got it. I'm gonna take off my flight suit, you know, and reassess a little bit. Juan Soto should probably be playing the DH position for the Padres a little bit more than he has. Jose Azocar, when he's on the field, weird things happen. Like he's an intangible effect, and I don't want to necessarily see my guy Trent Grisham get less playing time because he's insanely valuable. I know he has these baked-in stretches of 3 hits over 40 at bats.
It's called his career.
It is. We got to understand that is baked in, but he's not the problem. If you have one Trent Grisham on your team, and we've said this before, you're good. It's when you have 3 of those spots, right? So,
right.
Designated hitter for the Padres needs to be a productive place. They happen to have a guy who needs to be in the outfield a lot for his mental well-being, but he's also a bat-first guy who has been battling some nagging injuries lately in Juan Soto. And maybe he needs to spend a little bit more time on the bat in his hand. And we have a better defensive outfielder sitting on the bench, a guy who gets on base, who can fill a 7, 8, 9 spot in a way that we haven't really seen done this year. So I think if that happens, if Juan Soto is our DH a little bit more, I think they win a few more games.
Well, I love it, Chris, because that's something I haven't heard. I haven't heard anyone say that or suggest it. And it is interesting to consider. I don't believe politically that the Padres would make Juan Soto their DH because Juan Soto's looking for a $500 million contract. And if he's a DH at 24, every team in the league can hold that against him to some extent, despite the fact that Boris can say, look at the Padres that year. They were so bad that they had to play Jose Azocar. And that was the reason Juan had to be DH is in order to take Carpenter out. But Raphie, I want to instead look at it from this point of view. You've got Nelson Cruz, who's 42. You're paying him $1 million. You could cut Nelson Cruz today, sign Jesus Aguilar, for example, a right-handed power bat that's on the market. Odds are, statistically, that Aguilar would outperform Cruz going forward, given that Cruz is doing absolutely zip after, a few nice at-bats in April. Matt Carpenter has a player option for next year. The old reverse guarantee from Preller. If you are your worst version of yourself, you're guaranteed a job next year. If you're best version of yourself, you can opt out and we'll have to pay you more. Cruz really gives me no inspiration when he's at the plate. He needs to time up his swing with a first pitch fastball that leaks in. Like, there's only a couple limited scenarios whereby he might get a hit. Matt Carpenter, yes, he is somewhat commanding the zone. His bat looks like the weighted bat that people swing, or like if you were swinging a bat in a pool where you're trying really hard and it's like through the zone. Like, I haven't seen many bat heads slower through the attack zone than Matt Carpenter this year. And when they signed this guy, short porch at Yankee Stadium, he had an incredible month. For 3 years prior to that, he was one of the worst hitters in the National League, like an almost unplayably bad hitter. And I'm really afraid that Matt Carpenter is an unplayably bad hitter that we signed for a glittering 5-week stretch at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, it reminds me of I can't remember his first name. Block, I think was his last name, the PGA Championship a guy who was like a Michael Michael Block. It's like if we signed Michael Block and was like, this is who this guy is forever.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like he
10-year
played in a
contract,
major.
Michael Block.
He got a top 20 in a major. Like, how can, what do you mean? Of course. It's like, no. I think
that's what we did with Austin Nola. Why not?
I'm going to try and, like, in the only way I know how, like, be a little bit optimistic about this team and say that, like, once Manny comes back, I actually think that there are some things we can do that are marginal around the edges that can improve this team considerably. The first is we got Gary Sanchez. Get Austin Nola out of the lineup, send him down to El Paso, hope and pray that something happens in the altitude there that fixes him. And hopefully Campy, obviously he won't be back for at least another month or two at this point, but a Sanchez Campusano, platoon intrigues me in some weird way, in the sense that it could maybe hope to be league average, which is what we need, by the way. This is why when I have problems with people who have issues with Trent Grisham, because it's like he has like a 90 WRC plus right now. That's totally acceptable from an outfielder with great defense. Like that's you're supposed to build your lineup so that you can shield and account for that. So getting, an 80 to 85 WRC plus out of the catching position is not much to ask for. That's what a league average catcher does. I think we could get that there. DH, I'm going to take you back to 2021 when we signed Jurickson Profar, and there was this thought, or maybe it was the year before, but there was this thought that there was going to be a DH, and it was like, oh, this will be great because we can cycle Profar in and he provides us positional versatility. And then it wasn't there. And then we were boxed in and we had to have Profar in left field where he hadn't played before, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, after 2020 when we had the DH.
Yes, exactly. So the issue is, we didn't get to do that then, but we have the opportunity to do that now. And I think we send Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter to a lovely farm upstate, say thank you very much for your time. And we try and go back to that positional versatility thing where we get a cheap cheap bat to play first base. It could be, I know he went to La Jolla Country Day, but it could be Alfonso Rivas, like it could be Brandon Dixon for all I care. I don't care. It's just, we need to have the 4-person of Machado, Bogarts, Cronenworth, and Kim cycling with the 3 defensive positions and DH. Okay. And, you give those guys rest, you give them time off of your feet, you get a cheap first base bat, and then that's taken care of. And I think that those improvements actually go really far for the team. And I don't think it's that difficult. I don't know. What do you think, Craig?
Well, as to whether it could completely fix what's going on, that's the question. But so you're saying, I just want to lock this in.
Yeah.
You're saying that today, you think that both Carpenter and Cruz should be DFA'd. They should be sent to pasture. We could get. I'm just looking up Jesus Aguilar. Like, that's just a guy you could get randomly that has the A's.
Basically anyone on the Oakland
A's. He's not really a panacea, guys. And can I just ask, is there another team off your top of your heads that carries 2 DHs on their roster? I know we don't watch tons of other teams.
I don't think a lot about other teams, to be honest, which probably is bad for my health.
Like, I can't think of a single one. Like, teams go out and get their DH guy, like JD Martinez or Justin Turner, and then they have other guys. I can't think of a single other team that's like, we have these 2 guys who are basically useless in the field, and all they are is DHs.
Oh, and I'm just looking up, for example, Jesus Aguilar. Since the start of 2022, his slash is 232, 281, 380. That's over 622 trips. That's a bad player. Just like Gary Sanchez is a bad player, Jesus Aguilar is a bad player. It's an indictment of who we are and where we are that we look at players like this and consider them a positive alternative to what we have right now. That's how bad half of the Padres have been so far this season. That's why the team is where they are. It's the combination of that top 4 that we thought was going to be spectacular, dynamic, playing off one another, each one feeding off one another. Instead, it's been the exact reverse. Every time Tatis gets on, the other guy's making out. one guy's cold, then a guy gets hot. Soto's hot. Now Bogarts is maybe injured, maybe playing hurt, and is bad. When you get a guy in the 2 spot to get a hit, the 3 and 4 guys don't hit. When you get the leadoff guy on, the 2 and 3 guys don't hit. Machado's been bad. And now he's been hurt. And now you might have the entire left half of the infield, veterans under pressure, under giant money contracts for an underperforming team, playing with hand and wrist injuries through the summer. Hey, Bogart's begging the trainer, going show me a calendar that I can X off every day until you're going to allow me to get my next cortisone shot to make my wrist feel better because it hurts. And Machado going, I'm tough, I'm cool, I'm going to play with my drive hand, having a broken bone in there, and hope that not only people don't saw me off inside, or it doesn't get further aggravated before it eventually heals, but that he's Superman and his bones heal faster than other people. That's something Will Carroll and I talked about on a Patreon podcast months ago. Some people recover from soft tissue faster. Some people recover from going out at night and getting drunk faster. Bones just heal at the rate that bones heal. You can jump in the hyperbaric chamber. You can hang out with a monkey. You can do whatever. You can deep sea dive. It doesn't matter. The bones will heal at the rate they heal. And so this is my abiding concern, guys. That's the larger one. But Chris, would you cut Carpenter or Cruz right now?
Or I would do the or. I don't know if I'd do both of them, Craig. And that gets down to kind of stuff that we don't know. What intangibles are they bringing to the clubhouse? Carp's numbers are better. He's a very highly specialized left-handed bat, but I don't like the use of 2 26-man roster spots on your bench, which you've already given a lot to your bullpen, dedicated to guys who can't put a glove in their hand and contribute on the field. Like Raphie was saying, they used to have this roster versatility, and it was a real weapon. And guys like Brandon Dixon do bring that, and I don't see a drop-off from Nelson Cruz to Brandon Dixon. So if he's the guy that's got to go, I know they brought him in to have these intangible things going, to be the leader. Rougned Odor seems to have kind of supplanted him as the vibes guy, as the bearded vibes guy. Rougned Odor is crushing it. So, yeah, I do think that roster spot has become increasingly valuable as the team slips further behind 500. And it's probably time to say farewell to Nelson Cruz and congratulate him on an incredible career. I want to point out something about Gary Sanchez. And today I felt markedly worse after hearing the news because it was kind of like you said, Craig, reality had set in. This is where we are. We need to get Gary Sanchez, a guy who has been with 3 organizations the past 8 months or so. At the end of the season with the Twins, at the end of September, Gary Sanchez played in 28 games and he got 10 hits. He is not a great baseball player.
No.
And hasn't looked good all this year.
He's not a good baseball player.
No, when you watch his YouTube highlights of balls getting past him, at least our current guy can stop a ball, as Mark Grant most capably puts out. That's a defensive run saved. It made me feel bad that everybody got so excited about Gary Sanchez because we need that hope. Austin Nola certainly needs to get fixed. And El Paso, in our Discord, interesting theory that I don't necessarily 100% go by, but it has facts around it, is that Austin Nola took a ball to the face, one of the scariest things you can possibly have happen to you as a baseball player, and has not been the same since. He just hasn't. In spring, he was putting bat to ball like he always has. He fell off at the end of last year in the way that catchers might be prone to do, but he looked fresh this year. And then he got smacked in the face and has been a shadow of a Major League Baseball player ever since. So maybe that's what he needs, and that's what the Gary Sanchez experiment is all about. But, we've already said it. It's not very serious if Gary Sanchez is the guy you're trotting out at the end of the season.
Are you guys 100% confident that when this move is announced, that Austin Nola is either going to be optioned or DFA'd?
No. I think it's going to be Brett Sullivan. I think it's going to be Brett Sullivan. And I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's wild.
And
that would be against Melvin 100% because Bob Melvin wants a left-handed bat at catcher.
I don't know though, dude. I don't know. Like, I think would you be shocked to learn that AJ Preller is a stubborn person? Because I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be. And this is something I wanted to bring up earlier.
That's M. Night Shyamalan twist-worthy, Raphie.
Yeah. This is something I wanted to bring up earlier. And I'm going to credit Too Much Morton's on Twitter. I bring him up once a show. If you're on the Stupid Bird app, he's a must follow if you're a Padres fan. But one of the things he brought up is that Josh Stein, who is the assistant general manager with the San Diego Padres, is also overseeing our analytics department. And I don't want to speak to him personally because I know nothing about the man. He might be doing a great job. I don't know. But he's in his 21st season with the Padres this year. And he's overseeing the analytics department. And this is the kind of thing that makes me concerned because this is, the field has been evolving constantly and new people cycle in and out and in and out. And Too Much Morton did the kind of just asking questions thing, but it did bring to mind something where it's like, when we talk about the San Francisco Giants, I remember in 2021, the entire year in the Discord, when I was just a rank and file, $5 a month Discord member, the entire discourse was, any day now, the Giants are going to regress. Any day now, it's going to happen. And what's happening this year, by the way? The Giants are over 500, and they're 3.5 games in front of the Padres. And I'm seeing it in the Discord again. Any day now, they're going to regress. The Giants, as an organization, have a curiosity about the game of baseball that the Padres have never had. And this is getting into bigger systemic things that we're not going to be able to solve this year. And but one of the questions I saw that you sent to us, Craig, before the show is would the Big Four clicking be enough by itself, or is this club too easy to pitch to?
I want both of your answers. I have an answer.
I think that the Big Four clicking by itself, and this makes me really scared as a Padres fan, is not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough because I think that this club, every game it goes out there, is collapsing under the weight of itself in the lineup. Every time that the lineup has come out over the last month, I have been filled with dread after the 5 spot because I'm like, this is a black hole. And it doesn't matter if these guys aren't getting on base. Like, I really feel like in the 9 wins we've had in May, it has been because we have had home runs with men on first base. Like, that is the only situation in which 100%, we are winning.
100%. That's our inefficiency, is get one guy on first base and then homer.
Yes. So that is my answer for that question. I don't think it's enough. I think that they need to make marginal improvements for it to be enough.
Do you agree, Chris?
Not necessarily, and kinda. To go ahead and hedge things here. As is, like we just talked with the DH, if they don't get more production out of that particular position, then maybe not. Because that position is a guy who needs to just hit the damn ball. And right now, that isn't happening. Our shortstop, not our shortstop because he doesn't play that position anymore. Let's just name him. Ha-Sung Kim is a guy that you can put 6, 7, 8 in your lineup and feel good about the at-bat he's going to put in. I believe he still leads the league in pitches per plate appearance. He's going to grind out at-bats every single time he comes out. He has a good eye. I just don't want to see him in the 2-hole because we want our 4 guys there. Grisham is a guy that can get hot. He's got, I want to say, a 350 OPS. 350 on base percentage the last 2 weeks, kind of since coming out of that absolute dog shit dumpster he was in. And that's the guy that I think he is most of the time. And I think the Padres lose games when their pitching staff doesn't. I think the Padres win games when the pitching staff doesn't give up more than 4 runs. If the pitching staff gives up under 3 runs, they tend to win. And if the Padres offense scores 4 runs, they tend to win. Their record's great in that. We haven't seen the top 4 go. How the heck could we know? They've either been banged up, Tatis has been gone, or that's it. Tatis has been gone, or they've been banged up, because we haven't seen a full speed Xander. He's been. I think you're absolutely right, Craig. I think he absolutely has been hurt, and we're just now hearing about it because it's so obvious, and there's nothing else to do about it. I think they have to make changes in how they approach things. And Raphie, it's so funny you brought up the Giants, man, because they did release Gary Sanchez, but they were able to do that because they have a young catcher who hasn't quite lived up to expectations in Joey Bart. But they went out and got Blake Sable, a Rule 5 draft pick, who has given them half a win above replacement this year. A guy who, is basically a minor leaguer, has produced for them because they found him and have been able to get him going in a way.
They develop players.
Yeah, man.
We don't develop players.
We develop them for other teams, Craig.
Right. We develop profiles for other teams to build, but we don't take raw products and turn them into great players historically in the Preller regime. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate both perspectives. And I kind of feel like I'm in Gladiator right now. And
he put his thumbs down for our listeners on
watch on YouTube. Watch on YouTube.
You got to watch the show.
No, I can't let it out. There was too much drama. I felt it.
You got to tell me.
Collapsed.
Okay, Juan Soto right now. Praise for Juan Soto. We'll say it each week. We should say it each week. Juan Soto is playing like the player that we traded for. He's hitting toward a 1,000 OPS now.
Fly the banner. Hang it up. Mission accomplished, baby. Juan Soto's fixed.
We did it. We fixed him. It's over. We got him.
I hope you still got the flight suit.
Juan Soto.
We got him. So that's part of what you need for the Padres to be a great team. We also need Fernando Tatis Jr. to hit like the Rookie of the Year, MVP candidate, superstar that he's been. And he's been most of that. He's been like Gold Glove, Platinum Glove level right field, while being a good hitter, but not Toddy, not El Nino, not the game disturber that he's been. Machado, before being injured, was not good. Okay? Objectively not good.
Accurate.
Had like a good 10-day stretch followed by a really bad weekend followed by getting hurt. And Bogarts had a great month, and then apparently the wrist started to bother him again, and his wrist is bothering him, and he's a 30-ish year shortstop whose wrist is bothering him, and he's fighting through it, but he's not getting the way that you want him to. So you need to tell me that Soto's going to keep it up, Tatis is going to raise it up, Manny's going to come back and have the hand back and deliver at least 2 MVP months of baseball, and that Bogarts is either going to get the shot in time or feel better, and he's going to deliver 2 months of all-star level offense. Defense has been great. Defense has been terrific. Offense. If all of that happens concurrently, then yes, those 4 guys could by themselves develop enough offense to give a really good pitching staff, if it's pitching at the level it's been, enough ballast to win at a 60% clip, a 6 out of 10 clip. And over time, that'll get us to a wild card spot, which is probably our best case scenario as it is. So yes, but you're telling me all of that's going to happen the rest of the year? I think that's a drawing to an inside straight. And drawing to an inside straight's a hand you usually fold. And I hope that we spike it, but that feels unlikely to me, Raphie.
Yeah. I don't. I'm kind of a little bit spent, to be honest. I just think that this team needs to make changes around the margins, admit its faults. Like that's the biggest thing, and I think that drives us crazy as Padres fans. Is it feels like the team doesn't reckon with its faults, and there's a certain amount of that comes from I know we've just spent this entire time saying it's no longer early, but in terms of trading, it is still very early. It certainly wouldn't be out of the question for the team to make a move now. I'm now, just as we were talking, I was looking at who the unrestricted free agents are for first baseman for 2024. Just like who's a cheap rental. Having a terrible season so far is CJ Cron for the Rockies. But I was looking at his StatCast profile. It's basically the same. He's having insanely bad luck this year. So he's the same hitter as he's always been. He would cost you literally nothing. And the idea of putting Nelson Cruz out to pasture and bringing him in feels like just like an instant, like, what are the Rockies going to say? No, you know what I mean? Like it's like they don't give a crap. So it's just stuff like that where it's like, I want to feel like the team is at least an acknowledgement, but instead it feels like we're waking up in some sort of twilight zone where it's like, well, maybe today Rookie's going to turn it around, and and maybe today Austin Nola is going to lay that bunt down and seal things, perfectly. So that's what I'm looking for, is just a recognition of the faults and doing something about it.
And the reason I put my thumb down at the end, Chris, is because the second half of what I wrote in the prompt is what I kind of feel. This club is too easy to pitch to. You can't get the top four clicking all at the same time if one or two of the top four has an issue over time. And then any pitcher knows, once I get past that, I've got that 5 spot of the DH of the two old guys who can't get the bat through the zone in time. And then I've got this string of 4 players where we're, and again, Kim is playing great for a number 8 hitter on a really good team. But if he's the number 6 hitter, it's a little bit of an issue. Grisham, a number 9 hitter on a great team, you can live with him in his 4 for 40, 20 called strike 3 slumps, right? Like, but when you combine him with the DH auto out, with the catching auto out, with Kim being vulnerable to just getting overpowered by, high velo in critical situations, basically any pitcher knows, like, well, if I get to here, I just have to skip over to this spot and then I can get out of it. Okay, through here I can cruise. This is a spot I can always get to, that Nola Sullivan spot, and I can dig myself out of the inning, and then I'm leading off with those guys again and I'm in good shape. Like, we're a really, really easy club to pitch to. And good teams are pitching to the Padres in the way that puts their bad players in pressure situations. They've done it through the month of May, and those players have failed over and over again. And that's why I'm asking those literal questions. Should Carpenter and Cruz be allowed to take the June at bats for the Padres at DH? Or because, in April, you could have cut off other guys that then get hot, right? Soto had a not great April. Obviously, no one was going to cut Juan Soto, but, it's not impossible that in June, Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz renaissance their way through a gorgeous summer that helps the Padres to a reversal of this record. But is that likely? Is that something worth hanging on to? Or should the Padres decisively alter a third of their lineup at this point of the season?
Well, I want to point out that Raphie asked, are we relying on Rougned to Odor to turn it around and get hot? Well, he has, and they're still losing games.
Right. And this is the best you'll ever get.
Yeah, he's in a hot pocket. He is in a ham and cheese, lava hot, bite into it, you're getting juice up your nose and second-degree burns hot pocket. And we're not going to get many of those throughout the seasons, but he's fine on the bench if you're playing him once or twice a week. It's when he's your regular because they're banged up. Xander Bogaerts and his wrist soreness is concerning. He says he's dealt with it his entire career. Take him at his word. So I kind of check that box as it's going to be okay. Fernando Tatis Jr. is hitting 200 points just about under his career on base plus slugging rate. That's going to get better. Dude took an 18-month vacation. Hasn't seen major league pitchers in that amount of time. He crushed it in AAA because he was in El Paso facing minor leaguers. We know the swings there. We know the talent's there. It just needs to get the speed of the game back up. And I'll never stop believing in Manny Machado, Craig. He talks about the back of the baseball card, and then we hear other players in the clubhouse say we got to stop worrying about statistics, and statistics are the thing that's on the back of the baseball card plus his weight. I don't think that's what he's referring to. So the team has to mesh. It has to come together. It has to play good baseball for that to happen. And I have hope. I have to at this point because it's a $270 million Padres team that's playing like the Padres we have never seen spend that type on the same performance before. Typical Padres, atypical payroll, and Raphie said it greatly. This team has the same problems this year as it did last year. It's top heavy. The depth isn't versatile. You can't get to it. You can't lose a guy. You can't lose one of your top four and see somebody jump up into the spot like a lot of these deeper organizations with developmental capability do.
And we already talked about the potential for the inevitability that the Padres will pitch to a higher ERA over the course of the next couple of months.
I do want to push back on this a little bit, guys, and I don't want to extend it, but who are we expecting regression from? You, Darvish? I mean, we kind of saw that. We know. What's that?
The bullpen.
The bullpen.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you're right.
They had a sub 3. They had a sub 3 ERA in May. I mean, as starters and bullpen, like as a whole staff, they're just not going to be able to keep that up.
And Michael Wacha. Michael Wacha is not going to be the pitcher of the month.
See, no, I disagree with you there. Michael Wacha last year pitched better than he is this year. He had an ERA plus of 128. I think the dude might have figured some stuff out. I think we saw the bullpen success because Niebla saw what these guys can do, made adjustments. That's not and pushback rescinded. The bullpen is not going to give up 0 runs over 25 innings or whatever it was many more times. But I do think the team has an excellent starting pitching staff that has guys underperforming like Blake Snell and Joe Musgrove.
Darvish.
But Darvish, like I said, I think it's anomalous. I think he's going to implode 1 game a year, 2-3 games a year. And he's looked great most of this season. The numbers haven't quite backed it up. He's had terrible, rotten Citi Field luck in several different games, but his stuff is good. His sliders are good. I think he's going to come together and pitch better than he has, which doesn't mean regression. I think he's going to get better.
I hope you're right. I hope Musgrove has an 8-0 stretch in him like he had to start last season, that he has it in the middle of the season after he gets over the toe.
And he just turned in his best start.
He did. You hope that Snell, the most infuriating player, has a higher gear that he will find once again. But right now, this team is built on a lot of hopes. And the very last thing I want to do, because we're I think at the end of this, is just to point to what's to come, because it's no longer early. So we now must confront.
We're hearing the cries of the fishmongers, to quote Barton Fink.
Indeed. So this series at the Marlins is followed by home to the Cubs and then a 2-game Vetter Cup mini against the Mariners. Then it's at the Rockies, which
critical series.
We split earlier.
I'm not
with
kidding.
them.
I'm not
Do
kidding.
we do we ever feel great going to Coors Field? Like
No.
ever? Then it's home to the Guardians and the Rays, 2-3 game series at Petco Park. I don't feel great about either one of those series, guys. Then
And
it's a
the-
four gamer at San Francisco. Okay. That's June 19th to 22nd. It's a 4 gamer at Oracle AT&T Barry Bonds Park.
Candlestick.
Definitely not Candlestick. The one thing it's not is Candlestick. Then it's a quick 3-game homestand against the Nationals, June 23rd to 25th. Then it's 3 games at Pittsburgh, 3 games at Cincinnati, home to the Angels, 3 games, home to the Mets, 3 games. Then it's the All-Star break.
Easy.
What do the Padres have to do? They
Sweep a
need
series.
to play. They need to play that to at least.
Man.
They need to play that to at least 6 games over 500.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
Raphie
said,
said it,
I said
21
21 and
games.
14.
Yeah,
21 and
yeah.
14.
Exactly what it was.
I don't know. I didn't count exactly how many games that is, but 6 or 7 over 500. Yeah.
They have to win series, guys. They have to win. They have to sweep somebody. Let's sweep the Rays at home. How about that? Let's put that into the universe. Ryan Weathers in the first game, shutting down the most home runs in the Major League Baseball.
My God, Ryan Weathers was part of my worst case scenario. Was Ryan Weathers 37 games? Yeah,
Okay.
20, 20,
22 and 15.
22 and 15.
I think that's
Do they have the
eminently-
talent to do it? Yeah, of course they do.
Yeah.
Now they got to do it. I
Do
mean,
they
look,
have
you
the
are what you.
mojo?
Yeah, you are what your record says you are. You know.
Guys,
I think
do you-
this is the playoffs right now. If they can't get to that bar, the idea that they're going to be able to, once teams reconfigure and fortify and add, that the Padres will be able to leapfrog all of that is a joke. 22 and 15 in the next 37 games is the playoffs for the 2023 Padres. That's their entry tournament to get into the second half, to have a chance to be the team that you want them to be. Unless you believe that they're going to go Oakland A's, win 20 in a row, Brad Pitt winds up playing Preller in a movie down the road, like
Firing
Dave
the
Justice will
manager?
somehow be
Wait,
on this
what?
team. Yeah, right. Like, short of that, 22 and 15 in the next 37 is the playoffs for this team. To get to the playoffs, it's the play-in.
Well, dude, like you said, 2015, Pat Murphy. Preller's going to be very desperate if things continue as they go because
Yeah.
he's the architect. He built the castle, man. And I think that would be as panicky a move as possible. And I don't want 2015 or 2021 spoken into existence for this team. Our most recent year was 2022, where they gelled as a team late, yes, but they did do it. They gelled as a unit.
But they were 12 over at this point.
I know, but every season's
17 games
different.
better than we are now.
I know, but stories of seasons are different. They had a stretch like they've had to start the season in the middle of the season last year. They got lost. They got kind of listless. And Tatis, man, if Tatis is playing like we've probably all forgotten, like the 951 dot on base plus slugging guy that he is, I'm sorry. I think that energy adds a whole new element that we can't really imagine because we just haven't seen it.
Let's have Chris have spoken it into existence and put it as a capper right there. Padres Hot Tub Memorial Day. Hope you had a great weekend. Let's go, Padres. Got to start banking these wins, baby.